everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. For the last 3 years, we have gathered here to connect, inspire, and create. And tonight, we're going to do a little show and tell. Several people have submitted photos and will join us to share the story behind their lens. The schedule, or in front of their lens, I'm sorry, I think it's they're sharing their story in front of their lens. The schedule for upcoming presentations is on my website at lindanickell.com, and I'm pleased to announce that I have scheduled the rest of the year's speakers. And I know that they will spark your creativity and inspire you to look at the world a little differently. If you've missed some of our previous sessions, you'll find them linked to the Happiness Hour YouTube channel. So let's get started. All right, Donna McLean, you want to come into the room and tell us a little bit about your photo? And what I find interesting, and I kind of giggled when I saw your photo, at first, right off the bat, I thought, there's no birds in this picture. So are you
That's
in
true.
here? How are you, Donna?
I'm great. So yes, when I sent you this, I was like, look, it's people. So the story behind this picture is in 1998, I had an unexpected business trip to, ironically, Texas to Houston. And I had a chance meeting with a woman who I came to find out played in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, the league that they based the 1990 whatever 92 movie on, A League of Their Own. And she and I struck up a conversation. I'm from the South originally, even though I live in Michigan, so I talk to anybody. Come to find out, she was a pitcher for the Grand Rapids Chicks. And her name was Beans Reisinger, and Beans Reisinger and I became fast friends over this chance meeting in the Grand Rapids airport. And about 6 weeks later, she invited me out to her cottage on Lake Michigan to meet some gals that she had played baseball with. And that meeting were about, or that, casual gathering on Lake Michigan, there were about 9 women who played in the All-Americans. And it was like a little stone that got dropped in a pond that went out and out. And I've been very fortunate since 1998, when that happened, when I met Beans at this chance meeting, to get to know over 200 women who played in the All-Americans. I ended up becoming involved in their Players Association, serving on their board of directors. And I've had the pleasure of escorting many of them, or a number of them, down on the field in 7 major league ballparks. And the last one was in August of 2018. And the New York Yankees invited 4 players to New York to be introduced on field to recognize the 75th anniversary of the starting of the league. The gal who is waving to the crowd is Marilyn Jenkins. She was a Grand Rapids Chick and a very dear friend of mine. Unfortunately, she passed away a little less than a year after this photo was taken. That is a picture of her on the screen behind. She was a catcher for the Grand Rapids Chicks. And it's just been a real pleasure and joy in my life to get to know these women and hear their stories firsthand, and become dear friends with many of them. Sadly, of the almost 600 women who signed professional contracts, there are less than 50 that survive today.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a great story. I remember that movie, and this is kind of cool that you have this opportunity. Thank you for sharing, Donna. Christy Adams, do you want to jump in here?
Hello.
Hi. I remember seeing a photo and I thought, you stinker. God, that's beautiful. All right.
Yeah, so I included this one because I was so happy that all the stars aligned to get this shot. And some of you might have seen my Instagram story about it. So many things happened that it just lined up perfectly. And once a year, my husband and I, we brave getting up early to go to Bombay Hook, and that is in Delaware, which is about a 3-hour drive for us. And we got there. The gate is supposed to open a half hour before sunrise. It was not open. There was one car in front of us, and as we are waiting and waiting, the color is starting, and we're getting really antsy and mad that the gate is shut. So we turn around, go, there's some farmhouses in the area, and we're like, oh, maybe we'll find another spot. Couldn't find anything. The sun's starting to come up. We turn around, the gates finally open. And so we had to stop at the first spot that we saw that might have a good shot. And I had been at this spot before, and I had hoped to go somewhere else. So we were shooting wide angle for a little while, and I got kind of bored of that, and I switched to my 75 to 300 just to get a better shot, like closer up of the sun coming up. And all of a sudden, I get the lens on, I get set it up on the tripod, and my husband's kind of whispering, look, the deer, they're coming through. I couldn't even see them because it was kind of so dark. And I was focused on the trees. So I looked at the back of my camera, and I saw them moving slowly through the scene. And I was so stoked that they were coming through. I didn't really have a chance to change my settings either, because I wasn't shooting for wildlife. I was just shooting. I had a pretty long exposure going. And then all of a sudden they stopped because cars were starting to come through. There were some more visitors coming in. I guess they heard the cars. And I got like 2 shots, and then they turned and ran. So it was just like everything lined up that they were moving through the scene at that point. And yeah.
I mean, the sunrise is beautiful, but the deer just make this extraordinary,
Yeah.
And the cool thing is the separation that you have, at least between those 3. Those other 2, if one just had moved just a little bit.
I know.
but it's beautiful. You get, there's 2 deer there. So that's a great shot, Christy.
Yeah. So this was like almost 300 millimeters. So they were way out.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't switched to that lens, my husband was still shooting wide angle, and he can barely see them. And I had just happened to be bored shooting wide, and I switched at the right time.
Perfectly.
So I did enter this in National Wildlife Federation. They opened it for a couple extra days, and I had time to enter it. So we'll see.
Well, please let us know if you hear. That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. We've got Sue Sunderman. Hi, Sue.
Hi. This shot is special to me. Was taken in a Guilford Mills in Winston-Salem, but I have a hereditary eye condition. And so I was losing my sight. And so 2 years ago, I had a cornea transplant in one of my eyes, and the other eye, I'll have that surgery in a year or 2. But I had to like lay on my back for a week. I had different, things that I had to go through. So this was after my checkup where I could finally focus again and not just rely on automatic focus. I asked my daughter to take me somewhere, and there was still a little bit of fall colors. So this was my first shot after my eyes were operated on.
That's not a bad shot to start off again. That's beautiful. And I'm sorry, is this a mill? Is it a working, or I'm not? We don't have these things in Texas, so help me out.
Yeah, it was closed, but you can. I don't think it's working. I'm not sure. You can buy things there. It's old mill at Guilford in Winston-Salem, and that's where I had my surgery, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Well, very cool. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love the pop of red, and the red and the green are, across each other from the color wheel, and that red just pops. So beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Okay, so Steve Ninest, you're up. So I have your picture one, and then you tell me when you're ready for the picture two.
Okay. I put this one up because it's a very historically significant place that a lot of folks from the US don't get to. Not because you can't get there, just really out of the way for a lot of folks who are traveling in Europe. And I picked it because of the editing that's going on. The picture itself, I didn't have to crop it. It's about 40 millimeters on a 28-70 lens. And there is some of the dark, really dark shadows under the bridge are too dark. But other than that, I was able to take out highlights, and that's basically what it is. Take out the blown out whites, get the blacks that were too black, a little less black, and then leave this one with the color on the rainbow. And then I did that in Lightroom. And then what I did, which I rarely do, is I sent it over to Photoshop to do the second photo. So that's it. Photoshop, I took the people out that were on the bridge. And Lightroom is really good for taking specks out of the sky and birds, as a lot of you know, but when it gets to something more complicated, like wires running across the picture or people on a bridge, I find that Photoshop works better. So just wanted to show the before and after, really the Photoshop effect. Like I said, I didn't really have to do much to it in Lightroom.
Okay, so where was this taken? Because
okay, I was glad someone asked. I'm going to give everyone a hint. It is in Bosnia.
Oh, I was going to say that, but I thought, no, it's not. Okay.
This is called the Latin Bridge, and a very historical event took place at the foot of it on the left. And that's where Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in
Is Mostar?
1914.
Is this Mostar? No.
No, it's Sarajevo.
Sarajevo. Okay. Yeah.
Which is a very neat city. We're going to go back sometime. We were there for a couple of days, and there was so much there. And this kind of picture, it's a mix of Muslim, Christian, and Jewish communities. It's worth going out of your way to get there.
Yeah, I've been to Mostar, and that's why I thought that looks familiar to me, but I just
Mostar Bridge is way high, arched.
And it's arched, right. But I thought, well, maybe you're at a different location. But yeah, I've only, kind of like crossed the border, and I love that area. I thought it was really full of history, and the culture was good, and the food was fantastic. And I wasn't expecting any of those things. So cool. Well, thanks for sharing, Steve.
Sure.
Okay. All right, Joe, are you up and ready? Okay.
Okay. This is an abandoned railroad bridge in Georgetown, Texas. And I spotted this bridge 3 or 4 years ago from the road, and I couldn't figure out how to get to it. Mm-hmm. And it's the Katy Crossing Railroad Bridge over the San Gabriel River, and the Katy Railroad is what used to use it. And I was researching, trying to find out, how am I going to get to this bridge? How am I going to get to this bridge? I was walking in San Gabriel Park, and I could see it, but I didn't know how to get there. And then I was driving on the toll road, and I could see it, and I still couldn't figure it out. And then a local photographer, Linda, you probably know Marcus Lindsay, he posted a picture of it on his Instagram, and I asked him, how did you get there? Turns out there's a trailhead in the San Gabriel Park that a bunch of mountain bikers made on their own. And then the Parks Department, actually, or the Trail Conservatory or whatever it is locally, made a trailhead and made an official trail so I could walk to it. Now, this was my second venture to this bridge. The first day I went, I had tennis shoes on, and you're walking along the river, and then when you get to the bridge, it's up like a hill. So I tried climbing the hill with my camera. I just had my camera, I didn't have my backpack or anything, and I just had no grip on my shoe. So I said, okay, let's try this again. So I went a couple weeks later, went back, and I had hiking shoes on, and I was able to climb the hill pretty easy. And I actually did not walk across the bridge because there are some highs missing and there's holes, and I'm not 20 years old anymore. So I stood on the edge of where the hill was to where the bridge started, and I switched lenses. I put on my 100 to 400 and zoomed in. And this was in January, so there really wasn't much color. You know, even though we're in Texas, we still get, you know, winter-like conditions. So there really wasn't any color. So I just, you know, took the picture, and I think it's about 135 millimeter is where I zoomed. And then I use Photoshop Elements. So I just, you know, you convert it to black and white, and then use a couple of different sliders to give it a little bit of a vintage look. And I kind of like the way it came out. And, you know, I'm from the Rust Belt originally up in Ohio. So I like old, rusty, grungy, beat up stuff, you know, old beat up cars and things like that. There's a junkyard that I frequent up in Belton. They just let me wander around with my camera and take pictures of the old cars. So in fact, I got to go back up there for that. But yeah, it's a neat bridge. It's abandoned, so I wasn't worried about staying on the tracks. And it actually, you know, Andy Sharp, Linda, he went and found the bridge, took some pictures of it, and he told me that my picture inspired him to go find the bridge, and that meant a lot to me because he's such a phenomenal photographer with such a rich history of who he's worked for. So I was kind of glad about that. That really made me happy. But yeah, I just like the way it came out. It's actually hanging on my wall in my living room.
I like the treatment that you used, kind of a black and white or kind of a mixed sepia. I think that just gives it kind of a more aged look, more rustic. So I think I think if you'd done it in color, that sky would have been kind of blown out. But this just looks really old timey and kind of like a, you know, trip through the past. So very well done.
Thanks. The original, the color original just you know, was kind of blasé, you know. It's like, well, I got to do something to it.
Yeah. No, I think this was a very good call. Very cool, Joe. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. All right. Okay, go ahead, Karen.
Okay, so Jamie wanted to know if you considered raising the shadows to get more detail out of the really dark areas.
Okay.
Yeah,
Joe?
I didn't at the time. I just kind of was just playing around, and I just liked the way it came out.
I can see why Jamie asked that question, but I kind of like the dark, that contrast, that really almost black to it. I don't know. Because it takes my eye down the track versus all the details in front of it. But I think that's a preference, but that's a good question. Okay. Anything else, Karen?
No, not right now. It's just nice comments about it.
Okay, cool. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, Karen Riley, why don't you stay online?
Okay, this is a picture actually for my garden, and it really represents like the first time that I actually got some things to grow fairly well. And then I really like the dark and moody kind of feel of most of my photos in a very shallow depth of field. And so I just really love this one. And what turned out to be the Black-Eyed Susans, these, after they kind of were spent a little bit and turned to seed, these tiny little birds came and ate off all the seeds every evening while we were eating dinner. And so it was just the first time that I've actually felt like, okay, I grew something for myself and for all the little birds that are around us in the neighborhood.
So, and I can say I've been to Karen's house when the birds come and she gets very excited. I get excited too, but she's like overly excited. It's like, look, yeah, no, it's the Black-Eyed Susans. I can remember, it's just another sunflower looking flower, but when you get into the detail and you go to the core of that center, look at all the little, I don't know what they're called, I don't know, but just the little hairs in it. It's just super cool. So well done, you. I'm so glad that you got that macro lens.
I know, it's really nice.
All right, thank you. Egidio, come on into my room.
Yeah.
Hi, Egidio.
Hello. Well, this is one of those that I think it was my lucky day. It was just at the end of February. I had gone to Inks Lake, and I had spent part of the morning walking around. Mika had come for the day, and we were shooting some macros and all that. So after she left, I thought, well, I had heard of this place that they have at Inks Lake called the OK Rock, and that it's a beautiful place for sunsets. And I was kind of familiar with the area, and I said, okay, so I'm going there. It was my plan, but it didn't happen because the trail was very narrow, and there was this very short bridge, about 12 feet long or so, maybe 12 to 14 feet long. And I was just going my way with my camera. When I stepped on the bridge, I saw this hawk at the end of the bridge holding on to that squirrel. And my first reaction was that the hawk was going to take off when it saw me. Apparently, the squirrel was too heavy, and the hawk was young, and he couldn't move with the squirrel. So I first took pictures with my phone because I knew that this was not going to last. And then after a little while, it kept staying there. I said, okay, I was lucky to have my monopod with me on the camera. So I was able to really firm the monopod and get kind of eye level with the hawk, and started taking pictures. And it moved a couple of times and finally got off the trail because I had nowhere to go and I didn't want to disturb it. But when I made this shot, I felt really privileged to witness this moment in nature. And I had not noticed that there was blood in the hawk's beak until I got home and I looked at the photo. So it was something. I was glad I didn't go to the rock. I didn't pursue the sunset after that, and just did a little hike. But it lucked out. I was very pleased that the photo is not perfect. Something happened with the breast, the whites, and I've tried to recover as much. It does not show as blown out, but it's still, I don't have as much sharpness on the breast as I got on the wings and of course the eye. The camera had adjusted to the eye automatically, so that helped me tremendously. And this was shot at 200 millimeters, so I was not very far.
No, you weren't. So, as a birder that I consider myself to be, I would love to have the shot. I don't have anything that's cool that close. And when you were talking about the breast kind of being blown out, I wanted to say, hush your mouth, because no one's looking at that. Only you're seeing that. I'm looking at the sharpness of the eye, the blood, the detail, the little, the shading, the lipstick, so to speak, on his beak. And then, the wing detail is beautiful, but basically he's got lunch and he's not moving, and he's kind of daring you to challenge him. So this is really a cool opportunity that you got, and you made something with it. So yay.
Totally. I was really lucky, and yeah, it was perfect.
Now the birders in this room are going, I wish I had that shot too. Thank you, Gidio.
Thank you.
All right, Kathy Climbs from Idaho is in the room.
Here we are. Hi.
Hi, Kathy.
This is a shot of the Snake River. Now, I live in southern Idaho, and the Snake River runs all the way across it, and it is very important in many ways to southern Idaho as far as farming, fishing, recreating, you name it. But we even have a falls about 100 miles from me that is higher than Niagara Falls on this river. But I like to go down here in the evening and see what's going on. This was probably more like in August. And because there's a little bit of junk in the river, you can see of algae and stuff floating, which is all part of it. The smells are there because of it being hot. One of the things about the sky is obviously by August, we do have smoke from forest fires. And sometimes it's very thick, sometimes it's not, but the smoke painted the sky an unusual shade and allowed the sun rays to really stick out in this one. Very quiet, very peaceful time of the evening too. So it's one of my favorite things to do is go to the river.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of reflections, and this is, the sky is, sometimes you get pretty reflections, but you don't have a pretty sky. Sometimes you get a pretty sky and the water's kind of, moving, but the stillness of this is really, really nice. So not a bad landscape, my friend.
Thank you.
So yeah, I need to go to Idaho. We all need to come visit. All right. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
All right. Sue Pitts, come on in.
Yes.
Hi, Sue. Do you want to turn on your camera?
Okay, so here's my question. It's a lot fuzzier here than it is on my Lightroom.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what attracted me to this, that this egret is just going straight up from this tree. And my question was, I'm trying to decide whether to keep this photo. So my question was, do I just crop out the area, this meter on this pole to the left and try to adjust the focus and the color on the egret, or do I just trash this image? I mean, I have other better photos of the egret, but not in this particular motion. So
do you have other egret pictures with the twigs in their mouth?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm tempted to say, if you had better photos of similar, egret flying, building his nest, maybe I would put this one aside. But if you didn't, definitely keep it, because it's always, I always look at photos, especially my wildlife photos. Okay, I got a cardinal. So the next time I shoot a cardinal, it needs to beat that last shot so that I keep working towards getting a better shot, and it keeps me challenged. So, and I'm also a person that doesn't trash a lot of photos. So I think what was distracting me is the tree on the left side, because it's kind of like, watch your borders. However, if that's the tree that bird's going to, it's part of the story. And it's also, when you're doing, when I do projects, I look for, in my projects, it's about storytelling and in documenting. They don't have to be portfolio pieces. And there's going to be people in this room, like John Fisher is probably going, oh no, I would hit delete, because his portfolio is stuff that you would put on a book or a calendar or a print large. But when I'm doing short stories and documenting, I would use this. I would probably crop this a little tighter and get rid of some of the, on the right side, that dead space, more of that tree, and make it a little bit tighter. But that's just what I would do. It kind of depends on, what are you going to do with this picture? This is something that I would say, post it on Instagram and write the story that what this bird was doing in its nesting season. You're in the rookery, whatever it is. But is it something that I'd say go print large and put it on your wall? Probably not.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think the one thing that I hadn't thought about, leaving that tree on the left showing where it's going to, but I have some pictures of the same egret in the air with no environment around it. I thought, well, maybe I could do something with this photo, and like you said, maybe if I just take out that pole with the meter on it and crop
Well,
it a lot better.
Well, so here's my take, and I don't know. I think that the utility pole adds to this story because this egret is having to nest in the community that it picked. You know, you can't. It, like I said, it's not something that you're going to print very large and stick on a wall, but
Right.
it's part of the story. This is not an egret that's hanging out in High Island where it's just trees and other nesting. It's just he's in the middle of town. So I think that's still part of the story. I would, if you had decided to keep that tree on the left, I would have liked to see a little bit more of that tree, because when you start talking about watch your borders, you know, your borders, it's kind of like it takes my eye kind of out of the frame, and it just like, oh, did she miss that? It's big enough in this picture, but I mean, I would have left more of that tree and less on the right if you had that option. But bottom line, if you have better photos of it flying with twigs, I probably keep those photos and put this one aside for maybe some other, like a project.
Yeah.
Like if you were trying to document the whole rookery over the course of years, that's something that's there. That's part of the landscape, part of this egret's landscape. So
I appreciate all of your
that's just my 2 cents
on it. So
I
do have better pictures of the egret. I just like the environment on this one that I didn't have on the other one. So yeah, thanks for the tips.
Yeah, and then I would look, because I'm looking at the numbers in the chat going up. So I'm looking to see if other people are agreeing or disagreeing, or I have some other suggestions. But
there's some good suggestions.
Yeah, for me, I would keep it. So
okay, all right. Thanks, everybody.
All right, John Fisher, are you in my room?
I'm here.
Hey, John. Okay, so I have picture 1 and picture 2. So you tell me when your picture 2.
All right, this photo I've probably worked harder for than pretty much anything else in my portfolio, both getting the shot and doing the edit. This is Hidden Lake in Glacier National Park. Me and my photography partner Liz was up there in the winter or fall, I guess, of 2019. And this is high altitude, obviously, and it was a cold, windy, kind of just a nasty walk out to this location. And as we got up to the edge, the wind coming out of this valley was so strong that water droplets off a little creek was actually blowing back up into our face instead of going down the hillside, just to kind of get an idea of what the conditions were that night. And we weren't sure what the sunset was really going to be. It had these high clouds and just kind of a haze going through the valley. So it was a really pretty view, but just the shooting conditions and finding a good composition that we weren't getting wet or getting blown around too much was really difficult. Even after the walk out there, we had to stop like 2 or 3 times to catch our breath to even get out there. And then when I got home, just trying to get an edit of the shot that I never was really happy with. I kept editing it over and could scrap the whole thing, start over again. And something with the colors just didn't set right with me. And it wasn't until I did the Out of Chicago Live this last year that I did a presentation that Michael Bellino was doing on color. And I was like, I've got a photo to challenge him and see if he's got any ideas. Because I'd sent this photo to several other big name photographers and had some different suggestions, but nothing really ever set right. And even before the presentation, I messaged him a couple times. He's like, yeah, I've got your photo. It's a challenge. And I'm like, good. It's not just me that just doesn't see anything obvious. But we got to the presentation today and my photo came up and he's like, I think I've got it cracked. And he showed what he had done and the light bulb came on. So if you switch over to the next photo. So this is the final edit. And it's a little softer on Linda's screen than on mine, but that's just, the compression. But basically it was the green hues in the sky and then in the foreground that was just throwing the whole lighting, the whole situation off, the whole image. And also I had too dark of shadows in some areas. So what we did was, color balance the sky and then to rebalance also the foreground a little bit. and then lift the shadows quite a bit in a lot of the dark shadows in the foreground. And the photo really came together much more similar and much more feeling like it was that night when we were out there on the top of that ridge.
I remember the out of Chicago, and I don't remember this photo being talked about, but I knew that you had talked to Michael quite a bit over one of your photos. And so, yeah, I thought that guy was pretty amazing. In fact, John, if you don't mind, stick his name in the chat just so other people can kind of see who we're talking about. Look at because I had to look at it a little bit closer, but it's the foreground, that orangey kind of, that's where I see the big difference. So there's
the orangey in the foreground and the sky in the top right. Just the hue of the yellows change, and it gets much more into the more of almost a red hue in the sky. And I think it's a little stronger, at least on your screen coming through my screen, than it is. But it is, we definitely toned the greens down and brought a little more of a magenta undertone into the yellows.
And for me, that second, the first one, I was like, what's he complaining about? I would be happy with the first one, but I know that you're you. And then I looked at the second picture. I'm like, oh, you know, it's just that subtle touch. And I mean, I know it wasn't subtle on your end. I know you spent a lot of time and energy putting it together and making it look the way you want it to look.
Yeah.
Moodiness of that second photo, and it's just that, I don't know, it's just kind of that place doesn't exist. I mean, it just kind of has that mystical feel, even though it's, Glacier National. It's a beautiful shot, but I expect no less from you, John.
Well, thank you.
All right, Jamie.
So this is essentially in downtown Rockport. I went down there to do the boat tour of the Sandhill Cranes, and the day that our boat was supposed to go out, it was too windy. So we actually photographed from their front yard, but I wasn't real happy with what I was able to get away with. So then I went looking for birding spots around Rockport, and this is actually right along the beach. There's all of these windswept oaks, and there were probably between 50 and 100 great blue herons all nesting in these trees. And they're in a park sort of situation. And the park actually puts trimmings, like from the freeze when the oaks were losing their limbs and stuff. They just have a big pile of appropriately nest building size twigs, and they drop down and get a twig, and then they go up and take it to their partner. And it was very cool. I stayed there for about an hour just watching them.
They're beautiful. I remember seeing, I do remember seeing this photo, and it was just the feathers of it, just like, I guess that's their breeding plumage, I guess, but it's just gorgeous. I don't think I've ever seen the crown. I mean, I've seen blue herons quite a bit, and a lot of the cranes and the egrets, but yeah, the very rarely get to see them in their little rituals here. So that's cool. Very cool.
Well, and the wind was blowing, and they were all poofed up and whatnot. So there's some where they're, just sitting kind of side by side, looking kind of boring, but just the way, she's posturing and he's posturing, and
there's some talking here. So
it was noisy.
Well, thanks for sharing, Jamie. Okay, Ashley Campbell, hang on one second. I've got yours. Let me just pop it over here.
Well, I've always been fascinated with the Sandhill cranes, but I've never really had an opportunity to get close to them because they do come through Amarillo, but when they come through, they're usually, I hear them overhead, or if I do see them in a field, they're way far away and not close enough to get a good photo. But on January 16th of this year, we were in Bernardo Waterfowl Management Area, which is just north of Socorro off of I-25 in New Mexico. And we were actually on our way home from Bosque del Apache. And amazingly enough, my husband offered to stop one more time at Bernardo for a few more pictures. And so we had seen many cranes at Bosque, but we were able to get really close to them at Bernardo. And these cranes were right by the road, which loops through that area. So I took this photo at 200 millimeters, and the shutter speed was 1/1600. And I was just really excited. I was like, I need one of them to do something for me. I just don't want to have them standing around or something. So he performed. So that was really exciting. And I'll just say we had to cancel that trip twice in December. One time because of illness, the next time because of weather. So I really didn't know if we were even going to make it. So the third time was a charm, and we made it in January. So I was super excited.
Well, I can remember you posting kind of like a whole series probably from that trip. And I'm thinking, gosh, she's either really close or she's got her a big boy lens. And you said, no, you were just able to get that close to them. And I thought, okay, people, why are we going to Bosque? Because you can see them in Bosque and you are close, but you're not this close. So
yeah, just rolled down my window and boom, it was there.
I was going to say, how much cropping, or is there much cropping on this?
Not too much cropping on this.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say I met your husband last weekend, and I'm hoping that my little shout out to the husbands and the boyfriends, or, you know, your girlfriends that you're traveling with, whatever, that they like have a little bit, you know, thank them for patience of being that, you know, co-pilot.
Oh yeah, that paid off. And you asking John to watch your drink. Y'all are big buds now. So
oh, are we? Okay, good. So yeah, I mean, it's one of these things where these cranes they're huge from a distance. So when you're really that close to them, they are like these massive birds. So and then there's just so many of them. So they're really cool, and they are loud. But I like how clear this one is, and I really like that fading in. The depth is just, you know, the next ones, yeah, we know they're cranes, but then it just fades into gray. It's really a pretty photo. So
thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing. Oh my goodness. Okay, I think I stopped sharing my screen here, right? So
hey, Linda, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can I share a photo? I didn't turn anything into you, but more to get a suggestion or assistance.
Sure.
Thanks. And I'll share my screen.
Yep, go ahead and share your screen.
Thanks. Let me get to it real quick. I'm sorry. And if I'm out of line, let me know.
No, of course not. This looks like Norway, but I don't know where you are. Where is this?
This is actually in Glacier Park, Mini Glacier. And the story behind it, I'll tell you kind of a quick story of it. My husband and I love to go up there. We were up there this was pre-pandemic, so probably 2019, 2018. Okay. And so on the first night, it's one of those times where weird stuff happens. Like the first day we're there, my husband's asleep and he wakes up and he gets up real early compared to me, and he watched a bear that was trying to get an elk across. You can see where the mountain is. You can see right across the lake. Everyone that was downstairs that was awake at the time, this was early morning, was watching this bear trying to take this baby elk from the elk mother. And then we learned the next day that the story behind that is that the day before, the bear was successful and really had taken one of the baby elk. And so this elk mother on this second day was just fighting like crazy. And so that was kind of a cool thing. Oh, I'm sorry, not elk, it was a moose. I'm sorry, not elk, it was a moose. But then on another day, Rich getting up early again like he does. I'm sound asleep, enjoying myself. And so he comes in. It's early in the morning, 6 o'clock or something, and I was still sleeping. And but he's like, honey, sorry to wake you up, but you got to look outside. So I look outside, and I had just bought a new camera and didn't know how to use it. Actually had the manual with me, kind of reading about it and learning stuff, because I'm not a photographer. I just like to, play with stuff. And I could not for the life of me get a good shot with that camera. And it's a mirrorless camera, and I couldn't get a good shot. So all I needed to do was grab my cell phone because I wanted to capture the rainbow. Because if you look at it, there's like 2 rainbows, but on the inside, it was like sparkling. It was like, you can't see it on this shot, but there were like almost like stars dancing around or little diamonds glistening all on that inner rainbow. If I had been able to get if I knew what I was doing with my other camera, my real camera, what would you have done, all of you out there, like Linda, John, to actually get that feeling or capture some of that twinkling of the stars? I mean, it was very surreal. It was just the most surreal, most beautiful thing, besides probably the total eclipse of the sun. Just gorgeous. But with a cell phone, there's no way I could capture it. If I got my Sony to work, I wouldn't have had a clue how to capture it. What would you do in that situation? What would your settings be? What would you?
Okay, I'm going to invite John in here because I'm sure he's sitting there biting his fingernails. So, John, you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm here. All I'll say is that is really tough to capture with any camera, because stuff that moves and shimmers in the sky, it's usually because of rain moving through the sunlight, and that's really hard to capture. Maybe a slightly longer exposure might start picking up some of it. But those are kind of the conditions that any camera will have real struggle trying to capture. So don't feel bad that you couldn't get what you saw to come through with the camera.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's just that atmospheric, stuff in the air. It just, I don't know that you can catch that. Yeah, I'm kind of with John. I can't think of a way around that, and it's
the only
just
thing I could think, maybe like a half-second exposure or something, would be able to pick up enough of it to start making an effect on the edge of the rainbow or something. But it would be something that you'd have to play with and figure out what exposure is enough to get that kind of effect to come through.
Okay. Gosh. Okay. Well, thank you. I will.
Yeah, I think those were those, sometimes you just have to sit back and just enjoy the view. Because I photograph rainbows. They're hard to catch. When I do see them, it's like you're racing to get it, and you got to get on a tripod, and it's just tough. But and they disappear so quickly. So kudos for you getting a shot. I'm kind of sitting here getting mad at your husband because he didn't wake you up for the moose chase, because that's something I would have wanted to see.
Oh, I know, but he knew I would just cry about it. I would have been like taking across the river, across the lake, trying to stop him. I mean,
but it is hard. So, all right. Well, thanks for sharing that. And John, thank you for kicking in, because I thought, I don't know how I would do that. I don't know if that's possible. So if John doesn't know, then it's not possible.
It doesn't exist.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys.
You're welcome.
Sure. Very good. All right. Well, guys, I hope that you had fun tonight. It's a different program tonight, but honestly, I kind of like this platform where you can kind of share it. We won't do it all the time, but I find it really interesting because you guys are sitting on the other side of this going, I've got pictures too. And it's fun to share with other people that appreciate photography. So I appreciate that all of you, a lot of you sent in images and were willing to come on and share your work and tell some stories and put us in the place that you were when you took that photo. All right, next week, Darlene Perkin will be here to share her presentation, Elevate Your Creativity with a Photo Project. So until next time, go out and create something beautiful. And I hope that we see you again soon.